This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So a bombshell story dropped on Fox News the other day. And I'm honestly surprised that every progressive news outlet, and really even the mainstream, I'm surprised they didn't pick this up. This was like a huge story. And of course, please share this everywhere because this is something important, especially because I've been preaching this reality for quite some time. If you've been following this channel, then you know that pretty much the history of the FBI and the CIA between the years of the 50s up to the present. I discussed the 70 to 80 years of perpetual regime change, how we're very selective in who we decide to attack, how we decide to attack them, using chemical weapons and depleted uranium only on people of color. And I'd say that we have this affinity towards attacking leaders who are A, considering themselves socialists, but B, and most importantly, that want to desegregate and create equity for the people. And I say that this is because there has always been this conservative, hyper right-wing, neocon attitude in personnel that have been in charge in shaping these policies. But most notably, out of all of the regime change and out of all the leaders we've seen our intelligence community overthrow, there was one in particular that I'm going to discuss after I read to you this article, and you'll explain why this is so very, very important. So, former FBI official. The FBI tried to keep progressives and socialists out of office long after claiming otherwise. And this is the first tweet or the most popular tweet attached to that video on Fox News. It says, former FBI assistant directors just said, when I first got into the FBI, one of the missions of the FBI in its counterintelligence efforts was to try and keep progressives out of government. A former high-ranking U.S. government official recently admitted that the FBI previously worked to keep progressives and socialists out of government years after the agency officially claimed they had no longer engaged in such efforts. Terry Turshi is a former deputy assistant director of the FBI's counterterrorism division. His swift rise in the bureau is the stuff of legend, and Turshi was the director of the task force that ultimately arrested the infamous Ted Kaczynski. During a Friday appearance on Tucker Carlson Tonight, Turshi issued a stunning admission about previous instances of apparently illegal domestic counterintelligence operations conducted against left-of-center Americans. Turshi's comments were made in context of a discussion about the congressional committee's investigating of various scandals related to President Trump. He goes on to say that when you take the election and you take the White House, and you take the election and you take the House of Representatives, and you now convert all the committees that you have to investigate various aspects of the president, then your lifeblood has to be to react to stories. Turshi told Carlson. So you're going to see more stories planted so that these committees can have a lot of work to do. The former assistant FBI counterintelligence director then made a controversial admission. And I think it's just more of the same. And I think we can expect more of this because, quite honestly, the electorate in some places is putting more and progressives. I think he meant more of progressives. Putting more progressives and self-described socialists in positions. And ironically, years ago when I first got into the FBI, one of the missions of the FBI and its counterintelligence efforts was to try and keep these people out of office. Wow. That's a little bit of a bombshell there, don't you think? Well, first of all, let me just say, he got that wrong. The ones who are trying their damnedest to get Donald Trump out of office over this nonsensical Russiagate scandal that was merely meant to distract from the fact that Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had cheated to get to where she was, and she was coming to that realization very quickly that she actually did not have the support necessary to beat Donald Trump because, well, just for one, she refused to campaign. 2, she said she didn't need the votes of the people who voted for Bernie Sanders. 3, she shitted on black people. 4, I mean, she's just an awful, awful person. So they had to distract from all of that using Russiagate, and the neoliberals who were with Hillary Clinton and in her camp were the ones pushing for this investigation, not progressives. But once again, the progressive agenda is dangerous to conservatives. It is dangerous to the white elite establishment, specifically and mostly the white male elite establishment. And that's just a reality that some people don't want to live with, but it is the reality nonetheless. If you look at our history, it's always, always, always been that way. The article continues to say, the FBI has long acknowledged previous decades worth of oftentimes unlawful surveillance, sabotage, violence aimed at American anti-war protesters, feminists, communists, and what I believe most importantly, civil rights leader. The FBI even once infamously sent a letter to Martin Luther King advising him to kill himself. Mind you, the FBI, along with the rest of the American government, was found guilty in 1999 of conspiracy to assassinate Martin Luther King. The American Civil Liberties Unions described some of those efforts by the FBI. During the Cold War, the FBI ran a domestic intelligence counterintelligence program called Cointelpro. That phrase is so important to our progressive movement, to our movements of activism, more than what people realize. It is still being used today. It is still being used, but it's being used right now to make an attempt to overthrow Nicolas Maduro. It is the same phrase, the same counterintelligence efforts that are being used to overthrow or make an attempt at overthrowing Assad. It is what we're using to try and wage a war against Iran eventually. It is the same. This is what we have been using to get the people on the side of the government when it comes to making unlawful attempts to either attack or jail or even assassinate progressives and initiate regime change overseas. Cointelpro quickly evolved from a legitimate effort to protect national security from hostile foreign threats into an effort to suppress domestic political dissent through an array of illegal activities. Cointelpro targeted numerous nonviolent protest groups and political dissidents with illegal wiretaps, warrantless physical searches, and an array of dirty tricks. Like we are currently seeing right now, the FBI has a list of all progressive supporters and anybody who is black and actually calls out racism. They call us, what do they call us? Black identity extremists. Yeah, that's right. The FBI uses the information it gleaned from these improper investigations, not for law enforcement purposes, but to break up marriages, disrupt meetings, ostracize persons from their professions, and provoke target groups into rivalries that may result in deaths. The Senate Select Committee that investigated Cointelpro in the 1970s found that a combination of factors led to law enforcers becoming law breakers. This is one of the most important ones that I've seen. It's this statement right here describing Cointelpro. Provoke target groups into rivalries. Have we not seen that happening within Bernie Sanders groups on Facebook? Did we not see this happening at Standing Rock? Are we even starting to see a little bit of that between people who are now saying they're going to vote for Bernie Sanders versus people who are now saying they're going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard? Instead of assuming that they're on the same side, you're seeing random accounts lodge attacks at supporters of the other progressive candidate when this is really a renaissance in progressivism. We've never seen in our lifetime the stage shared with two legitimate progressive candidates who have a chance at winning, who will be debating and pushing each other further and further left. But that is not how Cointelpro and the intelligence community want you to see it. Now, let's be very clear. If you wonder if Cointelpro is still being used by the FBI, well, let's be honest. Donald Trump was illegally tapped in Trump Tower. It turned out that that was true. And what did they do? They said that they got the Gloria Allred and Lisa Bloom to get women to say that he had done something. We don't know if he did it or not. But when Gloria Allred and Lisa Bloom, who are the political assassins, get into the picture, I tend to not believe them. You think Cointelpro had anything to do with Jane Sanders being wrongfully accused of trying to spend money, university money, with the and even though it had her name had been cleared by the university time and time again, the FBI kept their foot on her neck. You don't think that that's important? Cointelpro is the reason that some of you see the word communist and socialist the way that you do. Cointelpro is the reason that you actually believe that quote unquote socialism is the problem with Venezuela, when it isn't the problem in Germany, it isn't the problem in Switzerland, it isn't the problem in Sweden, it isn't the problem in Norway, it isn't the problem in Spain. And in fact, funny enough, the more England right now tries to pull away from socialism, they are hurting. The more Canada tries to privatize its medical industry, it hurts itself. If you really want to get down to the bottom of why you see progressivism the way you do, honestly, if you honestly want to self-reflect, if you are a conservative, then by definition, you believe the government is evil. For the most part, you believe that too big of a government is unsustainable because people are instinctually corrupt once they gain power, which is true. I don't disagree with you there. And although the FBI considers itself a law enforcement agency, it has long been considered a tool of corrupt politicians who eventually become political leaders. Think about that. So even though they consider themselves a law enforcement agency, they're part of the government. That is considered a government job. You are promoted in a fashion and appointed to promotions in a very similar fashion as the rest of government. So why would you then believe the perpetual lies being told about Venezuela, being told about Syria? Because I can tell you, because of the lies we saw told about Mossadegh in Iran, the lies we saw told about Martin Luther King. They called Martin Luther King a communist. They were lobbying that attack at everyone who stood in the way of neoconservative imperialism. This is no small find, and this is no small admission. This requires investigation to see who was involved. This is groundbreaking for them to come out and admit this so late down the line when we have seen the attacks logged against the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, against the Bernie Sanders of the world. We have to make sure that our politicians are going to be won over or lost by the people. The people determined by their own research, legitimate research, by objective sources and honest sources. Yeah, there's going to be bias leaning one way, but there's a difference between bias and a coordinated attack against a candidate or a person or an activist. So I challenge you, if you consider yourself a conservative, if you consider yourself a person who legitimately fears big government, then reflect. This is your opportunity to reflect. Reflect on what you've been taught. at the hands of a corrupt government agency that created Cointelpro to manipulate you. And look at the patterns of Cointelpro and ask yourself, are you not still being manipulated? Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.